my beloved child. You think this morning is just another day passing by, another sunrise like all the others. The familiar sound of your alarm, the same streets, the same rush of people hurrying past you, and you believe everything unfolding around you is nothing more than ordinary life. But I look at the very same scene from another angle, and I see the dust of a battlefield rising around your footsteps. The roads you call city streets look to me like strategic front lines, where every glance, every word, every small decision echoes like the clash of weapons. You hear engines, street vendors, and phone notifications. I hear invisible arrows flying overhead, thoughts, judgments, temptations launched in the unseen realm that human eyes cannot detect. You think you are simply choosing a cafe, choosing an outfit, choosing a song to listen to. But in truth, you are choosing where to stand on a battlefield, closer to me or closer to the enemy's line of fire. The crowded intersections you cross resemble spiritual crossroads where many voices vie for your heart's allegiance. There are moments when you wait for the red light to turn and you feel absent-minded. But I see your soul standing between two opposing forces. On one side, my peace. On the other, the noise of worry, comparison, and self-condemnation. I do not tell you this to frighten you, my child, but so you will understand you are not as small or insignificant as you think. If you were truly insignificant, no battle would ever rise around you. You are walking through contested territory, and each seemingly ordinary step you take is marking a position on a map of war that I see far more clearly than you do. When you sit on a bus, on your motorbike, in your car, or at your office desk, you think you are only moving from point A to point B. But in the spiritual realm, I see an army shifting positions around you. Some words your coworkers casually throw out as jokes become sharpened arrows in the hands of darkness, aimed directly at the tender places of insecurity inside you. Some images that flash across your screen, the ones you say you are just looking at for fun, are baited hooks thrown out to pull your heart away from the direction I set for you. When you open an app just to kill time, subtle thoughts drift in like thin smoke, testing whether you will relax your guard. I see the arrows of doubt pass by each time you hear someone else talk about their success, and a quiet question rises in you. What about me? I see the hazy dust of comparison whenever you scroll through someone else's life and feel yourself falling behind. I also see the angels stationed around you, sent not to make you fearful, but to shield you in the places you don't even realize are dangerous. There are moments when you sigh in the middle of all the noise and think no one understands you. But I hear that sigh as a signal rising from the trenches, and I never ignore it. You think you are just another passenger in the crowd, but in my sight, you are escorted, guarded, and therefore the battleground around you is never as quiet as you assume. My child, when you say, "It's just another day," I hear behind that sentence the weariness of a soldier so used to the sound of explosions that he forgets he is standing at the edge of life and death. You do not see the maps being unrolled in the unseen realm, maps on which your name is not located in some empty white space, but in a red zone the enemy continually seeks to claim. You think your sleepless nights, your restless thoughts in the dark, are merely stress, but I see the thin smoke of fear, accusation, and painful memories drifting in like tear gas in a soldier's room. The words you mutter to yourself in the mirror, "I'm nothing, I'm a failure," are not mere complaints. They are declarations that can weaken the walls protecting your heart if you continue to believe them. Every time you abandon a dream I planted because of a few careless human opinions, in the invisible realm, it is as if you leave a trench empty for the enemy to walk through easily. And every time you ignore my gentle nudge within, and follow the frantic rhythm of your schedule instead. It is like a unit abandoning the commander's radio signal and turning down the wrong path in the night. I do not say this to condemn you. I say it because the things you call small, meaningless, insignificant are forming the root of an army, shaping the contours of your spiritual life. It is precisely because you are loved and valuable that the enemy wants to blur your identity, to convince you that you are just a passerby in this story. But in my records, you are not an extra or a spectator. You are the central figure I placed in the middle of a battlefield where I, myself, am prepared to fight alongside you. I know there are moments when you sit alone in a cafe, headphones in, eyes fixed on a screen, thinking you are disconnected from everything. But in truth, you are sitting at a crossroads of many spiritual voices. One whispers for you to retreat into isolation, to shut down hope and expectation because nothing will ever change. That voice is like a false commander ordering you to lay down your weapons. Another voice stirs a frantic need to control everything, keeping you tense and armored like a soldier who never removes his gear to rest, fearing everything will collapse if he ever stops trying. And then there is my voice, gentle yet persistent, not shouting, not shaking the ground, but passing over you like a soft breeze on a war-torn field, brushing your neck to remind you that you still have a refuge. If you turn back, you see yourself sitting alone. But I see the scratches on your armor, the knife marks left by words that once pierced you, the scorch marks from the bombs you walked through without anyone noticing. You tell yourself you are used to it. But I did not create you to become accustomed to living on an unstable front line. I created you to clearly know whose side you stand on and what you are fighting for. There is no hour in your day that is off duty, because the battle around you does not follow office hours. But the comfort is this: I do not leave the barracks either. I do not abandon my post. I do not withdraw my armies when night falls. What I desire today is to open your eyes so you will stop seeing yourself as a civilian accidentally wandering into a war zone and recognize that you are one I have called by name in the midst of the battlefield. My child, if you quiet your heart even for a moment, you will realize the faint sounds you thought were background noise have been signs of spiritual conflict for your very soul. That soft ache in your chest when you hear a song about a faith that once burned bright. The lump in your throat when you see people kneeling in prayer even though you feel unable to kneel. The restlessness when you read a verse and quickly turn the page. None of this is random. Like the whistle of invisible arrows slicing through fog. Passing thoughts like, I don't need God anymore. He doesn't care about me. Or I've gone too far are not innocent. They are poisoned arrows that will lodge themselves in your heart if you fail to recognize them. I stand above the dust of the battlefield, and I see clearly which arrows come from the enemy, which cries come from your soul, and which words I am sending down like rescue commands. You do not need to become an expert in spiritual strategy to survive. You only need to accept the truth that you are in a battle, so that from there you begin to seek the right commanding voice. You do not have to be afraid of every dark corner, but you do need to know that you are not standing in a neutral zone. There is no temporary safe area outside the reach of the two kingdoms. There is only the ground where you walk with me, and the ground where you stand exposed to the enemy's blows. Today I call your name not to push you alone onto the front line, but to pull you out of the illusion that you are just a spectator watching the match from the stands. I want you to see that the very place where you are sitting, working, breathing, is already a trench, and I am standing right there, placing my hand on your shoulder, speaking very softly but very clearly. You are not here by accident. You have been called by name into this very zone of conflict. and I will not leave you alone. You look back at these recent days and see nothing but a long chain of exhaustion, waking up with a heavy head, lying down at night with a mind still spinning like a wheel with no brake. You assume it is just the consequence of work, of modern life, of stacked up responsibilities, but I see the aftershocks of invisible attacks that have been striking your soul, like the sea that sometimes looks calm on the surface while powerful currents churn beneath. Your outer life may appear normal. You still go to work, still answer messages, still smile and talk, yet inside there are undercurrents pulling you in a direction you yourself cannot even name. Every time you sigh in the middle of a meeting, stare at the screen and cannot focus, it is not just lack of motivation, it is your heart growing weary from fending off lies, pounding against the shore of your soul night after night like waves. Every time you suddenly feel anxious for no clear reason, when nothing obvious has happened, as though you were standing on a ship's deck on a calm day and yet seasick, it is because, at the very bottom, there are spiritual tremors that have begun to reach the surface of your emotions. I have seen the nights when you turn off the lights and lie down, yet inside you hear a distant rumble that will not quiet, no rest, no stillness, like the sound of a restless sea echoing up from the deep. You think you are just too sensitive, but in truth you are hearing the resonance of a clash between me and the powers that do not want to let you go. The headaches without reason, the racing heart before any bad news arrives, the moments when you want to cry without knowing why. These are not random. They are ripples on the surface of the water, letting you know that something beneath is being stirred. I do not want you to simply take another pill and try to forget. I want you to recognize your emotions are not your enemy. They are signaling that there is warfare in the vicinity of your soul. If you only blame the weather, your horoscope, your personality, you will ignore the alarm bell I have allowed to sound so that you are not swept away without realizing it. My child, when you feel drained, even though you have not done anything too demanding, it is like a swimmer breaking the surface and wondering why their limbs feel so heavy. They did not see the current that has been quietly pulling against them the entire way. There are days when you simply sit at your computer, type a few lines, and yet your heart feels as if it has been fighting for hours, not because the task is so monumental, but because, in the midst of it, you have been constantly pushing back thoughts that attack your faith, your hope, your sense of worth. Every time you choose forgiveness, even before you speak it out loud, you are swimming against the dirty current of bitterness. That current does not want to let you go. It wants to drag you into deeper waters where light no longer reaches. Every time you decide not to message the person you know will pull you back into cycles of guilt. It is like one more vigorous kick in freezing water, leaving your whole body aching. This kind of exhaustion cannot be measured by the number of tasks on your calendar. It is measured by the number of spiritual decisions you have made, are making, and will make. I see you sitting blankly in front of the sink, hands soaking in water, heart hollow, and I hear the whispered thought, I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. And I know this is not merely physical fatigue. It is the cry of someone who has been swimming in undercurrents for too long without realizing they were fighting for their life. When you ask why small things crush you, why a simple piece of feedback feels like a sentence, why one cold look is enough to make you want to withdraw from every relationship, I see more clearly than anyone the old wounds at the bottom of your heart, the very places where the waves of the present keep crashing. Do not call yourself weak just because you struggle to stand. Name what is truly happening. You are under the pressure of a battle deeper than what your eyes can see. Do you remember the evenings when you sat curled up by the porch? A cup of hot water beside you, yet your soul felt like you were standing on a night shore. Listening to waves crashing ceaselessly against the banks of misunderstanding, confusion, and guilt, you picked up your phone to distract yourself, scrolling up and down through news, images, stories, each one carrying a small wave that breaks against your heart. This person more successful than you, that person with a warm family, another with a solid spiritual journey. You do not say anything, but inside, the tide of comparison rises. Every time you brush off a cutting joke with a laugh, yet remember it when you get home, another wave hits a soundless splash inside you that no one else hears. There are mornings when you drive to work with your stomach in knots, thinking about meetings, unanswered emails, expectations you haven't met. You label it work stress, but I see in it the sharpened blades of anxiety, honed over years of doubting your true worth. Like someone strolling along the beach, seeing only a thin sheet of water washing over their ankles, unaware of the large waves forming far offshore. You look at the small incidents of your day and do not realize they are the visible part of a battle fed by all the times you believed the lie. You are not enough. You are not loved. You have to carry everything alone. I do not condemn you for not recognizing this, but I invite you to start seeing differently instead of asking, "Why am I so weak?" Ask, "What is trying to push me away from God?" Instead of thinking, "My life is just messy like this." Begin to discern that there is an unseen hand trying to muddy the waters so you can no longer see your way. My child, I know there are mornings when your first sensation upon waking is not hope, but heaviness, like someone opening their eyes on a boat that has drifted farther from shore than the night before. You do not remember rowing there, and yet you find yourself far away. The adrift feeling you name is not just a mood. It is a sign that you have let weary days pass without forcing yourself to drop anchor in me. Every time you try to pull yourself together by telling yourself to be stronger, more positive, it is like someone in the deep ocean trying to stand on the surface by sheer leg strength. Sooner or later, they will be exhausted. In contrast, every time you simply breathe out a very short prayer, "Please help me," whether on the bus, in the office restroom, at your desk, or while washing your face, that is when you let down a rescue line to the depths. I am always there, deeper than the very bottom you fear, ready to take hold of that line and pull. The feeling of being directionless, pulled by others' demands, by expectations you placed on yourself, by fears of being left behind, these are the unseen currents steering your life. If you do not allow me to become your compass, I am not sitting on the shore simply watching you swim. I have gone into the waters, endured the waves, and carried the weight of every sin and shadow upon a single body. That is why I understand, more deeply than anyone, the reason you feel so tired. I do not condemn the nights when all you can do is pull the blanket over your head and hope everything disappears. But I do not want you to remain there, for you were not created to live submerged in exhaustion and call it normal. I placed within you the ability to sense when the undercurrent is pulling too hard, and I am using the very vague signals you feel now to call you into my safe place. Have you noticed that even when life feels smooth sailing on the outside, your heart sometimes grows more unsettled, like a sea so calm that no one suspects danger? Though seasoned sailors know that beneath such stillness, the currents can be fiercest. In the same way, when everything in your life appears fine, steady work, peaceful relationships, no visible lack, you sometimes feel emptier, purposeless, unsure why your soul wavers. This is not because you are ungrateful, nor because you are greedy for more, but because your soul was designed to live in meaning, and that meaning cannot be found when you ignore the spiritual battleground you are standing in just to maintain a smooth surface for others to admire. Whenever you feel an inexplicable unease in peaceful days, I do not want you to drown it out with noise. I want you to sit with me so I can show you the source of the waves forming in the distance. The tremors you sense, difficulty sleeping, losing focus, irritability, or the sense that everything feels pointless are not sent to shame you, but to warn you that something deep within is drifting from the direction I set for you. I do not frighten you by exaggerating the battle, nor do I minimize it until you think you imagined it. I come to hand you a new map, so you understand that the fatigue, pressure, and confusion you feel are not signs of abandonment, but proof that you are in the zone of conflict because you carry value in my plan. My child, you think that if you were truly called, there would be some dramatic sign, thunder, a strange dream, a life-shaking event, because in your mind, all important callings must produce sound. But in the unseen realm, some callings do not touch the eardrum, do not vibrate the air, do not awaken your body, and yet carve themselves deeply into the sacred part of you. You do not hear them because they produce no audible sound, but your soul has trembled every time I have spoken your name since ancient days, like the waves beneath the sea calling to the surface where no one can hear them, like sunlight touching your skin without making a noise. My call to you works the same way. It does not ring outwardly, but it stirs the deepest part of you. That is why you sometimes feel inexplicably restless, why you long for things you have never touched, why you sense you do not fully belong to the things you are immersed in. In the afternoons when you look at the sky and feel your heart ache without knowing why. In the mornings when you wake with the sense that something is waiting for me. In the nights, you lie still and feel a hollow inside you, calling for something you have yet to understand. These are all my soundless calls. You think you have no role in the spiritual realm because nothing extraordinary appears in your outward life, but that is because you have learned to believe that the invisible only matters when it shakes the visible. In truth, most of the callings I place upon you do not enter through the ear, but through the spirit, quiet as the evening breeze, light as gold dust settling on your shoulder, yet strong as the cord pulling your soul toward its destiny. Do you remember Samuel? My child, the boy who had no idea he was being called. For the voice he heard did not sound like thundering heavens or shaking earth, but like his teacher's voice, gentle, familiar, nothing supernatural if judged by the ear. 3 times he rose, thinking Eli had called him, because the calling was too soft to distinguish. Yet, in that softness, I awakened the life of a prophet. You think you are not like Samuel because you have not heard a whisper in the night as he did. But in truth, you have heard in your own way. You simply have not recognized that it was me. The moments when something stirs inside you, though your mind is weary. The moments when you suddenly stop what you are doing and glance upward as if someone is watching. The words or songs that bring you to tears for no obvious reason. These are not emotional reactions. These are awakenings to my call. Sometimes I call you while you are washing dishes, waiting for the elevator, wrapping a scarf, or typing half a message, not to disrupt you, but because in such ordinary moments, your heart is least defended, most able to hear, most reachable. You do not feel called because you expect something grand. Yet I begin with something small. For everything I create begins as a tiny seed. You have told yourself, if I had any role at all, Surely he would have made it clear by now. Not realizing that I have been making it clear, you have simply been waiting for a trumpet while I have been using wind. I do not need to shout into the heart I call. For when I call, my life enters the calling itself, and life does not need sound to be recognized. Just as a seed breaks open under the soil without a noise and yet pushes through the earth, the calling I plant within you produces no sound and yet awakens movements you cannot explain. You wonder why some things others do with ease feel wrong for you, why a stable life does not satisfy you, why you cannot fully merge into the pursuits of the world. It is not because you are lost, but because you were called out of that ordinary territory long ago. There are seasons you wander, detour, or walk the wrong direction. But whenever you hit the boundary of misalignment, your heart becomes uneasy, unsettled, restless. That is not instinct, that is my calling from the unseen heavens. You ask why my voice is not clearer, louder, or more direct. But my child, if my voice thundered from the beginning, you would run toward me out of fear, not love. I call you with a sound that makes no sound, so that you come to me with your heart, not with panic. You do not hear that calling with your ears, but your spirit hears it clearly. You hear it in the longings that never die out, the longing to live a life that truly means something, the longing to know you are loved even while you are still unfinished, the longing to step out of the habits that keep you bound, the longing to do something unseen by everyone else but seen by me. You hear it in those moments when you feel you simply cannot keep living the way you used to, as if someone were gently shaking your shoulder and saying, "It's time to come higher." You hear it in the moments when you stand between two choices and your heart leans toward what is right, even when you don't know why. You hear it in the unexpected encouragement of strangers, in a passing verse of scripture that feels like a thread stitching heaven to your heart, in songs that tighten your throat and you don't know the reason. These things are not coincidence. They are signals from my voiceless calling, the calling that remains steady even when you are tired, remains faithful even when you feel unworthy, continues to sound even when you think you've gone too far. If you would let your heart grow quiet for just one beat, you would realize the real question is not, is there a calling, but do I want to recognize it? For my voice does not come from outside, pressing in, it rises from within, where you were created to recognize it. My child, I have called your name since before you could even say your own. When you were still in the hidden darkness of formation, I already saw the things you would do, the people you would touch, the light you would carry, the doors you would walk through. That calling did not disappear even as you grew up in environments where no one told you your life had meaning, even as you walked through years that seemed aimless, even as you heard so much noise that you came to believe you were just another anonymous soul. You do not fully understand why. Deep down, you have always believed your life had a purpose, that you were not an accident, that you were not here just to exist, yet that belief remained. It is because the sound of my calling is awakening the seed I planted in you before you ever saw the sun for the first time. That calling does not sound like a human voice, does not use earthly vocabulary, does not boom like thunder, but it is patient, gentle, persistent, like the heartbeat of a child in the womb. No one else hears it, but it proves there is life. You are not unknown in the unseen realm. You are not an empty space. You are not outside the list. On the contrary, your name has been spoken in the council of heaven, where I decided that you would be one who carries light into the dark places of your generation. I call you in ways this world cannot hear, So you will know that this calling does not come from people, is not limited by circumstances, and cannot be silenced by any human quietness. My child, from the time you entered this world, people have attached names to you based on what their eyes could see. They have called you the strong one who endures, the one who always smiles through it, the hard-working employee, the introvert, the people-pleaser, the strong one, or, on the other hand, the failure, the dreamer, the inconsistent one. They look at the achievements you have or have not yet attained, at the times you slipped or got back up, at the temperament you showed in a few situations, and they believe they have your worth measured in their hands. You also once believed that you were the very labels people stuck on your forehead, that you only needed to perform better, try harder, become more praiseworthy to be worthy of the labels they considered good. But in my eyes, those labels are only like a thin layer of dust on the coat of a soldier after a long road. They do not determine who you are, nor do they alter the purpose I planted deep in your soul. People name you according to passing appearances, but I call you according to the eternal purpose I sowed in you from long ago. What people praise or criticize only reflects the surface, but the way I call you touches the core part of you that you have never had words to name. There are times when you look into the mirror and see only the person others see, someone who must strain to work, must force themselves to fit in, must pour out effort to avoid being left behind. You think you are nothing more than the result of roles life has forced you to play. But I look deeper than the tired lines on your face. I see the imprint of the meaning I placed inside you, something that cannot be measured by grades, by salary, by title. People ask you what job you do. I ask, what is your soul living for? People determine your worth by your abilities and results. I determine you by the purpose for which I created you, a purpose that cannot be destroyed by failure, by lack, or by the passing of years. They may call you small, ordinary, unremarkable, but I have called you light in a dim generation, a carrier of living water to dry places, a bringer of hope to the hopeless, one who stands in the gap between night and dawn. They see you as someone drifting along with life. I see you as someone I have placed in this exact generation to carry out something no one else can replace. My child, people look at you and see what you display, but I look at you and see what I have deposited. People call you according to your past. I call you according to the future I have written. People say you are difficult, broken, anxious, hard to approach. But in those very traits I see markers of your calling, the sensitivity I gave you to distinguish the true from the false, the deep compassion you try to hide so you will not be hurt, the fineness of your soul that lets you perceive the pain of others. People call you weak when you cry in the night, but I hear those tears as the prayers of a warrior fighting beyond their strength. Those tears do not accuse you. They testify that your soul is still alive. When people say you haven't tried hard enough, I see that you have fought with everything you had in battlefields they know nothing about. When they call you useless, I see how you have been holding back invisible assaults in every moment that makes them think you are simply breathing. When they say you should be stronger, I see that you have stood up in the very days when darkness most wanted to knock you down. You often wonder who the real you is. Are you the person people call you, or the one I call? The truth is, you will always be confused as long as you keep using earthly ears to hear your own name. You are so used to trying to become the version others expect that my voice calling you becomes a whisper in a crowded market of noise. I do not deny the present traits you have, but I do not use them to define you. I use the purpose I planted in you to call you up. You were not created to live according to human labels. But according to heaven's calling, people want you to fit the mold of society. But I want you to align with the design of heaven. People sort you into categories. I place you into a story. People want you to do more. I want you to become truer to the essence I wrote into your soul before this world ever demanded that you prove your worth. My child, I do not call you by titles, because titles change. I call you by identity, because identity from me does not change. I do not call you by what you have done wrong, because your wrongs are not stronger than what I have done right. I do not call you by your fear, your sin, or your failures. I call you by the future I give, by the life I breathe, by the purpose I have written. I do not call you a victim of life. I call you one sent into life. I do not call you someone barely surviving. I call you one who carries light. I do not call you someone out of hope. I call you one who brings the dawn. Hear me, people may call you by names that come and go, but I call you by the name I have engraved on the palm of my hand, and no one has the right to erase it. When I call you, I am not merely describing you. I am awakening the heavenly part within you, the part buried under wounds, under criticism, under the years you believed you were only a faint, unnoticed figure. I call you not because you are doing much, but because you were created to become more than this. And the purpose in your soul, the purpose people cannot see, will always be greater than any label people place on you. My child, you look at yourself and see trembling hands, weary feet, a heart easily wounded, and you conclude that you are too small to do anything significant. But I look at the very same person and see the light reflected from the armor I placed on you long before you knew how to name your faith. You see only an ordinary coat on your shoulders as you step outside, but I see a breastplate glowing whenever you choose to stand on the side of what is right. You see shoes worn down from too many days of walking, but I see your feet carrying the sandals of the gospel of peace. You see tired eyes from countless sleepless nights, but I see the eyes of a watchman, one who remains aware of what moves in the deep places of the soul. You think you are merely hiding your weaknesses, but I see you carrying the shield of faith, even when you do not realize how many flaming arrows it is stopping in the dark. People may look at you and see exhaustion, but in the unseen realm, darkness looks at you and sees a warrior, not because your strength is great, but because my armor on you shines brighter than it expected. Do you know why the attacks have been so relentless? Not because you are useless, but because the armor I placed on you terrifies the darkness. Ephesians 6:1-18 is not written only for the more spiritual ones. My child, it is written for you. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may stand against the schemes of the devil. You think you are simply fighting invisible pressure, but in truth, you are standing in the fire zone of the battlefield. Every time you choose restraint instead of giving in to anger, you are tightening the belt of truth around your waist. Every time you reject the lie that you are worthless, you are lifting the shield of faith to extinguish a flaming arrow. Every time you pause to pray in the company restroom, even for a few seconds, you are drawing the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God, to cut through the thought that wants to drown you. You do not hear the clash of metal, but I see every block, every strike, every strategic movement your soul makes. My child, my armor does not rest on your body, it rests on your spirit, and the darkness recognizes it even when you do not recognize yourself. There are nights when you curl into yourself, thinking you are nothing but a fragile being, unable to confess the fear and overwhelm pressing against your faith. Yet in that very night, I see the sword still in your hand, even when you believe you have dropped it. You see yourself as a small soldier lost on a vast battlefield, but I see you standing on the front line, the very place where I always position my chosen warriors. You think you are merely trying to survive the day, but the truth is that you are resisting an entire spiritual storm with a faith that is small but real, and that alone shakes the kingdom of darkness. If you were truly insignificant, the enemy would not bother with strategies. But because the light in you is real, because the armor on you is real, darkness cannot ignore you, cannot bypass you, cannot attack you lightly. Do not underestimate the moment you kneel in silence with no beautiful words to say. In the unseen realm, that moment is like a soldier lifting his shield amid a rain of arrows unpraised, unnoticed, but fully seen by me. I see the times you choose forgiveness even while your heart still aches. Your breastplate of righteousness shines like the sun in that moment. I see the times you rise after failure, your trembling feet held steady by the sandals of peace. I see the times you read a single verse and the tears come not because you are weak, but because the sword of the Spirit touched a wound I intend to heal. You do not see the light radiating from your armor, but the darkness sees it clearly, and it trembles at the warrior I am forming within you. My child, I know you still believe you are not ready, not holy enough, not strong enough, but I did not wait for you to be enough before clothing you with armor. It is the armor I placed on you that makes you enough. You do not become a warrior before I equip you. You are equipped so you may become a warrior. You do not need natural strength, only the willingness to stand in the light I give. You do not need to understand everything happening around you, only to trust that I am fighting with you. You do not need to feel great, for it is my presence in you that is power, and when I am the one who places the armor on you, no force can remove it. No arrow pierces when I shield you. No attack can overwhelm you when you stand in me. Your weakness does not weaken the armor. Your trembling does not make me tremble. Your fatigue does not make me withdraw. This armor does not depend on your emotions, but on my power. Therefore, my child, even when you think you are small, I see a warrior. Even when you think you are merely a survivor, I see one who will stand and pull many souls toward the light. Even when you think you lack the strength, I see one who will remain firm in fierce winds. You are a warrior not because you are strong, but because I am the one who clothes you. And when I choose, when I equip, when I call, no force dares to treat you lightly. Walk forward, my warrior, for the moment you stand in my light, all of hell knows you no longer belong to the darkness. When I call your name on the battlefield, your first reaction is always to look at yourself and see trembling hands, weak breath, and pockets of anxiety you believe will disqualify you from every calling. You wonder how someone who has not even conquered the fears inside can stand in an invisible war. But in the paradox of heaven, I do not choose the strong to rely on their own might. I choose the trembling so they rely on mine. You see instability within yourself, but I see space for my power to move. You see broken breath, but I see a signal that summons my heavenly armies to tighten formation around you. You see yourself as a tiny soldier lost in a barren field, but I see a warrior covered by a host beyond counting, ready to step into battles you do not understand. Some attacks sweep across your life as nothing more than a chill in your spirit, a sadness without explanation, a single sentence that weighs your heart like stone, a restless night with no clear cause. You call it a mood, but I know it is the aftershock of a strike I stopped before it reached you. Other times you are working and suddenly feel a thin mist settling over your thoughts, slowing them down. You think it is stress, but in truth, a spear was aimed at you, and I stepped into the gap. The battles you cannot understand are the very battles I fought on your behalf, the collisions your eyes never saw but your soul still feels through lingering fatigue. If you are still standing today, it is not because you are skilled, but because I shielded you when you did not know I was near. My beloved child, you once believed that to be chosen, you had to be stronger, sturdier, more unwavering in faith. But battles in the spiritual realm do not rely on the hardness of your heart, they rely on my power when you allow me to place my hand upon your shoulder. I choose the weak to reveal my strength. I choose the wounded to reveal my restoration. I choose the trembling to reveal my steadfast protection. You have measured yourself by what you think a warrior must possess, while I measure by what a warrior must receive to be covered by me. Therefore, weakness does not disqualify you from the battlefield. It positions you in a sacred place where I can do what you cannot. Even darkness recognizes the armor I have placed upon you. It sees clearly the light radiating from where you stand, light you may not perceive. But darkness perceives with absolute clarity. It sees the angelic host encircling you like a ring of fire, preventing it from getting closer than I permit. You think the attacks aimed at you are signs you have been abandoned. But in truth, it is precisely because my light is in you that the enemy attempts to make you doubt your identity. You are targeted not because you are weak, but because you are chosen and you are not consumed, not because you are strong, but because I stand between you and every shadow. This is the spiritual paradox. The one whose breath trembles is the very one who makes darkness tremble because of the light that comes from me. Your name echoes across the battlefield not to send you charging alone into war, but to remind you that I am present. I do not call to place more weight upon your shoulders, but to place myself upon your shoulders. I do not require you to understand everything taking place around you. I require you to let me lead, to let me go before you, to let me fight in the places you are not yet strong enough to face. You only need to follow what I speak and keep your heart within the light I give, and the battle leave that to me. No whirlwind in the spiritual realm can overthrow the one I have called, because that one does not rely on himself, but on the one who never loses. Each time you feel inexplicably sad, empty, restless, you often scold yourself, I'm moody, too sensitive, too weak. But in the spiritual realm, these tremors are not your fault. They are signs of a collision between two territories, the territory I am drawing you into and the territory darkness is trying to pull you back toward. There are days when you stand in the middle of a room and forget what you were looking for, your mind blank, yet your heart racing. That is the moment your soul is touching the boundary between two kingdoms. When your feet stand on the floor but your spirit stands at the border of light and shadow, that sense of disorientation is not random. It is a signal that something within you is shifting in a way human senses cannot perceive. Sometimes you wash your face in the morning and look into the mirror, suddenly feeling unfamiliar to yourself, not because your appearance has changed, but because the inner battle is shaking the room. When two territories collide, they do not make noise, but they create waves, and your spirit feels those waves long before your mind understands them. There are moments when you sit on your bed, the phone lit in your hand, yet your heart feels hollow, as if the room just lost all its sound. You don't understand why you were laughing minutes earlier but now feel a weight on your chest. This is not instability, it is the sign that I am pulling you toward the light, while another force resists losing its hold. The boundary between two kingdoms is not drawn with soil or stone. It lies in the smallest decisions you think don't matter, a thought you choose to keep or release, a second you choose to pray or stay silent, a moment you lift your eyes to find me or lower your head to run from your feelings. Each time you feel restless with no clear reason, as if someone called your name but you didn't fully hear it. That is the moment two invisible forces are pulling your heart in different directions. One direction wants you to sink, the other wants you to rise. One direction whispers, "No one needs you. You have no worth. You're not enough." While the other speaks, "My words, you belong to me. You are being led. You are not forgotten." I know the afternoons when you walk among crowds, yet feel like an outsider, everything moving but something inside you, standing still. This is not simple loneliness. It is a sign your soul is standing at a border, one that I am expanding while darkness tries to shrink. You do not understand why your heart tightens, though nothing sad has happened. Why your breath quickens, though you haven't run. Why you want to cry, though no one has hurt you. But I see it clearly. You are stepping out of a territory you have stayed in too long, and your departure is provoking resistance. There are mornings when your mind feels foggy and heavy, and you tell yourself, "I'm just tired." But in truth, your spirit senses the shifting of the battle lines. The boundary between two territories never stays still as you move toward me. Darkness retreats, yet tries to leave behind echoes an old image, a memory that collapses your chest, a voice from years ago resurfacing, an unnameable emptiness. These are not random. They are the recoil of a kingdom losing its claim on you. I know the moments when you sit in a chair and feel your whole body sag as if the strength has left you. You tell yourself, "I'm just overthinking." But in reality, two kingdoms are pulling your heart in opposite directions. Darkness pulls through anxiety. I pull through peace. Darkness whispers, "You're going backward," while I say, "You are being pulled out." Darkness replays loneliness. I open you into closeness. Darkness brings emptiness. I place purpose. The collision of two kingdoms makes you feel like you are falling. But in truth, you are being lifted out of ground that no longer belongs to you. The feeling of emptiness is not a void of meaning. It is the old territory being dismantled so there is no room left for darkness. The feeling of restlessness is not instability. It is my footsteps touching the soil of your soul and shaking it. The feeling of unexplained sadness is not a sign you are wrong. It is a sign the shadowy region within you is weakening. When territories collide, dust rises and you experience that dust as sadness, fatigue, confusion, hollow spaces. But when the dust settles, the land that belongs to me will appear more clearly. Do not fear these sudden emotions. They do not come to crush you. They come to announce that the war is shifting in your favor. Anytime your heart feels tangled, when you stand in the middle of a room without knowing why you walked there, when you stare at your phone without knowing what you're searching for, that is the moment your soul is scanning for light in a newly opened territory. You think you are confused, but in truth you are sensing direction. You think you are being torn apart, but in truth it is the old power losing ground. You think you are growing weaker, but in truth, the spiritual map is being redrawn. Remember this, my child, your emotions do not reflect your value. They reflect the battle around you. And whenever two kingdoms collide, you will feel it not to make you afraid, but to help you recognize that I am making a way. When you feel sadness without a cause, pause and whisper, "Lord, show me what is happening." When you feel empty, let that emptiness become the space I fill. When you feel restless, let your steps run into my arms. For you are not merely sensing the battlefield, you are shifting toward victory. Every heavy sleep you cannot explain. Every morning, when your body feels more exhausted than when you first lay down, is not merely the result of bad habits or a chaotic schedule. In the spiritual realm, Nights like these are moments when your soul is pulled into the battle line, the thin border where two forces meet. While your physical body lies still, your soul does not sleep. It stands on unseen ground where opposing forces continue to collide. You may assume that your restless dreams or sleepless turning are simply anxiety, but I see the dark waves trying to press over you, and I also see my own light standing directly in front of them, blocking their path. There are nights when you toss and turn, unable to find any position that brings rest. You think you are merely struggling to fall asleep. But within you, a strong movement is taking place. The boundary between two territories does not appear only when you are awake. It shows up even as you drift into sleep. That is when the territories still occupied by old thoughts, memories, fears, or words spoken over you rise up and demand ground again. Darkness uses the hours of loosening to remind you of things meant to weaken you, a shame you once carried, an old failure, an image you want to forget, or a feeling of abandonment you thought you had healed. But in those very nights, I place a barrier of light around you. What exhausts you is not that darkness is winning, but that it is being pushed back. When you wake with a pounding heart, stinging eyes, or a heavy fog resting on your mind, you think you simply lacked sleep. But I see the battle your soul fought in the night, the unwanted thoughts, the unsettling images, the whispers that try to make you doubt yourself. None of these come to make you fall. They come because you are moving away from the territory that once held you. The battle line is where the ground shakes the most, where you feel the greatest fatigue, but also where old boundaries are about to break. I know there are mornings when you open your eyes and do not want to leave your bed. You feel no desire for anything, no strength to face a new day, no clear reason for the heaviness that clings to you like a load of stones. This is not ordinary stagnancy. It is the sign that you have just stepped out of a battlefield during the night. What you call negative emotions are actually the natural response of a soul emerging from conflict. Your body is not weak. Your soul has just spent the night resisting what tried to bind you to the old. When your sleep feels weighed down as if something pressed upon it, I want you to know one thing: you were not abandoned. On the contrary, those are the moments when I draw closest. There are nights when you think you are peacefully asleep, but in truth I am placing my hand upon your forehead, shielding your mind from invisible spears. There are moments when you feel pulled downward, but in reality I am holding your feet so you are not dragged away from the light. There are dreams that make you wake with your heart clenched. Yet, in those very moments, my presence has wrapped around you to keep you from sinking deeper. The battle line is not a place for fear, it is a place for recognition. The heaviness you feel in the morning is not proof of weakness, but proof that you are stepping out of a territory where darkness once had rights. Heavy sleep is not a sign that you are losing. It is evidence that the battlefield is shaking because you are being moved into safer ground. Not every battle happens with shouting. Most of the greatest ones occur in the silence of night, and I am the one who keeps you through them. I want you to know this as well: your body and your soul are connected far more deeply than you realize. When your soul stands in the battle line, your body feels its weight. One night of the soul can feel like a full day of the body. So, do not blame yourself when you feel weak in the morning. You are not weak. You have been fighting without knowing it. And I am the source of new strength for you every time the sun rises. I do not let you wake without light. I do not let you open your eyes in fatigue without giving you breath that restores. What I desire is that each morning, even when your heart is still heavy, you call my name slowly, as though relighting a lamp in a room still filled with the dust of battle. Just one breath turning toward me is enough to summon an army of heaven to take their places around you, ready to clear the way so that the day ahead will will not be as heavy as the night behind. Just one small whisper, Lord, be with me, is enough for the trembling boundary under your feet to become firm ground again. And every time you rise from your bed conscious that I am with you, the battle line loses its power to pull you back. You are tired not because you are being dragged down, but because you are being lifted. You are heavy not because darkness is winning, but because light is expanding within you. You are restless not because you lack peace, but because the old territory is shrinking. I see each one of your nights. I know every wave that crashes against your mind. And I am the one placing my hand on you so that you do not sink. The battle line does not end in darkness. It ends in my light. There are moments when you realize you have been silent longer than usual, not because you have nothing to say, but because something inside you feels drained. You do not want to explain, to share, or to try to interpret what is happening within you. You simply sit there, letting time drip through your fingers like water slipping through open hands. Others may think you are tired or avoiding conversation, but I see clearly that this is not avoidance. It is the moment the battlefield quiets. Every soldier has a stillness in which to hear the next command, and so does your soul. Prolonged silence is not paralysis. It is the moment I silence the noise of battle so that my voice can reach you without interference. You think silence is emptiness, but in truth, it is the space I create for you to breathe after collisions you did not even know you endured. There are battles you do not recognize until they have ended attacks on your thoughts. Whispers meant to cloud my promises, nameless feelings that push you to withdraw. When these waves pass, your soul settles like a lake after a storm. You are silent not because you lack words, but because something within you is waiting for me to speak first. You are silent because your soul knows my voice will shape you for the next battle. I know there are days when you do not want to talk to anyone, do not want to answer messages, do not want to hear any advice, not because you are cold, but because too many sounds have overwhelmed you before. When you slip into this quietness, I do not blame you, I draw near. I draw near because, in this silence, your heart is softest, most receptive, and deepest. When you grow silent, the world may think you have closed yourself off. But I know this is when you open in a different way, open through listening, and I never miss those moments. Silence is the doorway I use to bring peace into the places where you lack it. It is not emptiness, but clearing, not surrender, but resetting. In that silence, I am gathering the fragments left behind from the battle you just passed through, a fear you have not yet named, a small wound you thought insignificant, a careless word someone released that left your heart unsteady. I collect them, lift them, untangle them from the places where you have been carrying them yourself. You think you are merely low on energy, but in truth, I am removing what does not belong to you. There are moments when you sit staring at a white wall, looking out a window, or gazing into the empty space of your room without any clear thoughts. You assume it is vagueness, but I call it the meeting point where I insert my words. When you no longer have the strength to fill your own mind, your mind becomes empty enough to receive. I do not speak while you are rushing. I speak when the battlefield grows still. I do not speak in chaos. I speak in the silence you did not create, but I arranged. You must understand this prolonged silence is not my delay. It is the war room of a warrior. It is where I redraw your map. It is where I place in you new discernment, new strength, new clarity. Before every new battle, generals gather their soldiers to hear the new instructions. Likewise, I draw you into stillness so you can hear what I am preparing you to enter. You think you don't feel like talking because you are exhausted. But I am holding you back so you do not step into the next fight with a mind that has not been restored. There are times you sit at your table, eyes distant, neither sad nor joyful, just still. You assume it is emotional numbness, but I see it as a golden hour. In that moment, you are not following any voice, not pulled by fear, not shaped by others' expectations, not driven by wandering emotions. It is in that very moment that I begin to speak, speaking through peace that spreads like soft morning light, speaking through a gentle thought placed in your mind, speaking through a clarity that appears with no obvious source. You do not hear the sound, but you see the direction. You hear no instruction, but you know the next step. You hear no sentence, but you sense exactly where your feet must move. Silence is the bridge between what has broken and what is arriving. It is the link between the battle that ended and the victory that awaits. Without the pause, you would not hear my voice above the echoes of the battlefield. Do not fear silence. See it as the place where I set you still to recalibrate your strength. Mend your torn places. Tighten your focus. And fasten your spiritual armor. You are not stopping because you are weak. You are stopping because I am preparing to carry you farther. And when you ask, why do I feel nothing? Why am I silent for so long? I want you to know this in that very moment. My voice is nearest. You do not hear because you are standing in the second before I give the command. When the battlefield quiets, it is not an ending. It is the moment I place my hand on your shoulder and say, listen closely, for from here you will step into a new territory. The words that wounded you may seem like the words of people, but in the unseen realm, they are often not merely sound released from human lips. They can take the shape of arrows wrapped in voices, arrows aimed at the most vulnerable points of your heart. When someone speaks carelessly or intentionally, you only hear the sound. But I see the invisible layer, the direction of the shot, the force behind it, and the intent that rides within it. Sometimes the person had no ill intent at all. Yet darkness exploits their unguarded moment to use their words as arrows, searching for gaps in your inner defenses. And when those words touch a place inside you that has not yet healed, the pain is sharper than you expect. I see how you try to hide your pain behind words like, I'm fine. I'm used to it. Maybe I'm just sensitive. But I am not deceived by your self-comforting explanations. I see clearly where the arrow has lodged in the deepest place, the place you do not let anyone touch. Simple phrases such as, you're not good enough, you've failed, you're useless, or no one needs you, when carried by the shadow, become poisoned arrows bearing accusations meant to break the walls of your heart. And when you hear them, even when they are small, they echo in your mind longer than anything kind others have ever spoken. You often wonder why a sentence from years ago still tightens your chest, why a passing insult kept you awake, why a careless remark makes you fold inward. It is because the arrow did not strike the surface. It sought the softest place, the wounded memory, the fragile self-worth, the unhealed corner within. And I see exactly how those arrows work on your heart. What you thought you had forgotten still lies in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to rise again and make you doubt your worth one more time. Your defenses are not made of stone walls or sharp weapons. They are built from what you believe about yourself. If you believe you have no value, that defense will be weak. If you believe you always disappoint people, the shadow will attack precisely there. If you believe you will never be enough, Even a small criticism becomes a storm. Every weak defense is an open door for the voice-wrapped arrows to land. I do not blame you for these fragile places. I want to strengthen them with you. I see the moments when someone said something seemingly ordinary, yet it sent your mind into a spiral. Maybe they're right. Maybe I really am useless. Maybe I cannot change. Maybe I'm just a burden. Darkness always takes the opportunity to drive the arrow deeper the moment you waver. But it is in that very moment that I also draw near, not to scold you for believing a lie, but to take your hand and pull out each arrow, even when it has sunk so deeply that you fear it cannot be removed. I want you to know that not every word that hurt you came from the person who spoke it. Sometimes they too are wounded, driven by fear, insecurity, or the very words that once broke them. Darkness always looks for a person with unhealed wounds to wrap an arrow. But that does not make you less valuable. It simply shows you are standing on a battlefield where words become ammunition, where feelings become weaknesses, and where the inner walls must constantly be fortified by me. You cannot stop every arrow that flies toward you, but you can learn to discern which arrows belong to the darkness. If a word paralyzes you, pulls you away from me, or makes you doubt yourself in a way that leaves no room for hope, then it is not my word. If a word brings shame without a way back home, it is not my correction. If a word makes you feel so small that you want to disappear, it is not a word from heaven. A weak defense is not proof that you are failing. It is a reminder that I am ready to build you a new wall stronger, brighter, higher. I stand beside you every time an arrow hits. I see the tears you shed, but dare not show anyone. I hear your quiet sighs in the night. I know the things you whisper to yourself. I wish I weren't this easily wounded. But I do not call you weak. I call you the one I am protecting. I do not call your heart fragile. I call it the place where I will build a fortress. Your defenses are not built by hardening yourself. They are built by the truth I place in you, by the words I speak over you, by the identity I give you. So, when a word wounds you, do not rush to run away. Bring it to me. Do not keep the arrow inside simply because you think it is too small to mention. Every arrow I remove from you is replaced by a stone to build a stronger wall. And each of these walls will make the arrows wrapped in voices lose their ability to penetrate. Not every word spoken about you is true. Only the words I speak can define you. The confusion that repeats in your heart is not merely emotional instability or temperament, as you often accuse yourself. In the unseen realm, it is often a strategy of darkness designed to make you doubt the path I am leading you on. Your confusion is not born from weakness. It is born from the fact that you are drawing closer to the path I ordained. And when darkness sees you nearing a new door, it stirs shifting winds to throw off your balance. Like someone standing in an open field where the wind whirls in 3 or 4 directions within seconds. You don't know which way to face, unsure if what you feel is right or wrong. But I see it clearly that wind does not come from me. There are days you wake with peace, only for a single sharp thought hours later to slide in and make you question everything. You doubt yourself, doubt the journey you're on, doubt what I said, doubt even the prayers that once strengthened you. You think, why do I change so fast? Why can't I hold on to faith? But what you don't know is that confusion is not the change of your heart. It is a wind blowing from a realm that does not belong to you. And when the wind keeps shifting, the one standing in the field thinks the ground is moving, but it is the wind that is chaotic, not the ground. Darkness knows this well. If it cannot stop you, it will try to distract you. It will not push you down immediately. It will make you spin. It will send invisible questions into your mind. Are you sure God spoke to you? Are you sure you're on the right path? What if you're wrong? What if you're just imagining all of this? These questions never come with answers. They exist only to disorient you. Shifting wind does not aim to blow down a house. It aims to confuse the builder so he doesn't know where to place the next stone. I have seen how you sit before a small decision with a heaviness, as though choosing life or death. Not because the decision is big, but because the darkness has blown 3 or 4 winds at once, a bit of fear of being wrong, a bit of self-doubt, a memory of a past failure, a lingering wound from someone's hurtful words. And when the winds swirl like that, you think you are chaotic, when, in truth, you are standing at a threshold. I am opening. Confusion is the sign that you are near a shifting point, not because you are off track, but because you are about to move forward. I want you to know that my guidance is not like a swirling storm. It is like a steady breath, like the quiet of early morning, light, gentle, but enough for you to see the way. I do not lead with chaos, I lead with clarity. When your emotions rise and fall like restless waves, they are not reflecting what I am doing. They reflect the battle darkness is trying to create in your heart, like someone rowing a boat on water. When the wind blows against you, you feel the rocking, but the current beneath still moves in the right direction. What I am doing in you is always more stable than what you feel. When confusion comes, you often think, I lack faith. But I look at your confusion and see the intersection where darkness tries to slip in. Confusion does not make you worse, it simply reveals that you are being pulled from 2 directions. But you must learn to discern where does the confusion come from. If it leads you into prayer, into seeking me, into yearning for light, then it is confusion that I have intercepted and redirected. But if it leads you into shrinking back, self-blame, avoidance, or doubting me, then it is the confusion born from shifting winds, not from truth. You must remember this darkness cannot create a decree. It can only create echoes. It repeats old fears, repeats old failures, repeats old doubts, and tries to make you believe that is your future. But I speak new things, and new things do not sound like the chains of captivity. New things do not paralyze you, they make you want to move. New things do not make you question your worth, they make you want to stand tall. New things do not make you hide, they draw you toward me. When confusion rises, do this instead of asking, where did I go wrong? Ask, where is this wind coming from? Because not every thought that passes through your mind is your own voice. Not every movement within your heart reflects your true heart. And not every wind comes from me. A warrior does not learn to rely on emotion. A warrior learns to rely on the true direction of the wind. And the true wind, the true breath comes from my spirit. I want you to know this truth whenever confusion returns. Again and again. Like the wind shifting 3 or 4 times in a day. It is not the sign that you are lost. It is evidence that you are so close to the right path that darkness feels threatened. It changes tactics constantly because it cannot hold the advantage. You are moving toward a stronger light, and darkness is trying to spin you in circles to slow your pace. But you will not spin for long, because I am drawing near, and my breath will steady the winds around you. Shifting winds cannot shift your direction when your eyes remain fixed on me. Every emotional attack aimed at you carries one purpose: to make you forget your true identity. Darkness knows that if it cannot take away your future, it will try to make you forget the identity I placed in your soul long before you knew how to speak your own name. Those sudden emotional waves, unexplained sadness, baseless guilt, sudden insecurity, vague fear, they do not appear by chance. They are sent with the hope that if they come often enough, You will drift from the words I've spoken over you, because if you forget your true name, you will begin to accept the names darkness assigns to you. I have spoken from the very beginning, and that word has never changed. I have called you by name. You are mine. Isaiah 4:3-1. But darkness never stops trying to blur that decree within you. It cannot erase my word. So it attacks your emotions in hopes that you will stop believing it. When it makes you feel worthless, unwanted, abandoned, or inadequate, it is not targeting your feelings, it is targeting your identity. You hurt on the surface, but its true aim is the deepest place inside you, the place where I placed your name. You often think you are too sensitive or easily affected, but I see something different. I see that your heart reacts most intensely whenever emotions collide with the area of calling. When someone says something that makes you feel insufficient, it pierces because your heart knows it was created for something greater. When you fail at something small and yet feel unbearably heavy, it is because darkness is knocking at the door of the calling I placed in you, hoping you will believe that small failure defines you. When you feel shame from something long past, darkness wants you to believe your past is your name, but I gave you another name long ago. Your emotions are not the enemy. It is the attacks through your emotions that you must discern. Darkness does not target your logic, because logic can be corrected. It targets your feelings, because feelings are where you most quickly believe something even when it is not true. It speaks through sensation, not sentences. The feeling of being unloved, the feeling of being invisible, the feeling of not being enough, the feeling of being left behind, the feeling of being unworthy, the feeling of being too late, the feeling of having no future. Each feeling acts like dust, trying to settle over your true calling, but dust cannot rename you. It can only momentarily cover you. I want you to understand that every time you ask, "Who am I in your eyes?" your soul is actually reacting to an attack. That is not the question of someone lost. It is the question of someone whose identity is under assault, yet still turns to the right source to be reminded. That question always opens the way for me to whisper into your heart what heaven wrote long before you are loved, redeemed, called, chosen, and named by me. Calling is not a lofty title. It is the deepest truth that every attack attempts to break. I know there are mornings when you wake up and cannot explain why your heart feels low, as if your worth slipped out of your chest overnight. It is not because you lost anything. It is the moment darkness pushes a wave of emotion to make you forget whose you are. But I stand beside your bed every morning, and the moment you turn your heart toward me, even briefly, I am ready to reignite a truth no sorrow can reach. Calling does not live in emotions, so emotions cannot steal it. When someone wounds you with their words, darkness steps in afterward and adds its own whisper. You are dismissed. You have no value. No one needs you. But you must know that is not my voice. I never call you by names that push you downward. I never use shame to lead you. I never use heaviness to teach you. Your calling is always spoken by my light, not by chains. Emotional attacks are not meant to make you cry. They are meant to make you forget that I called you by name. A tear does not satisfy the enemy, but if your worth begins to tremble, that is what it wants. Yet I do not come to erase emotion. I come to place it in its proper position. Emotion for feeling, calling for standing. I want you to know this every time your sense of worth wavers. You are not weakening. You are standing at the very place where my voice is about to speak more clearly. When your emotions shake, it is not a sign that things are ending. It is a sign that heaven is preparing to declare your true identity again. Darkness attacks hardest right before I reaffirm your calling the loudest. Every time you tremble, I will speak again. Every time you forget, I will remind you. Every time you see yourself as ordinary, I will stand before you and repeat, my decree, I have called you by name, you are mine. No attack is stronger than the word I have placed upon you. I do not train you through shouting, nor do I force you to grow through harsh commands. I train you by letting you face your own inner world, where the noise of the battlefield is gone and only you and the truth remain. There are mornings when your room is so silent you can hear the wind moving through the crack of the door. But you do not know that this very silence is the classroom I built for you. Beside the empty chair where no one sits to encourage or remind you, I am inviting you to look directly at the places you often avoid, the vague fears, the old wounds, the dreams you thought had died, the questions you were never brave enough to ask me. As a child, you thought teaching always had to be loud with warnings or urges pushing you forward. But in the spiritual journey, you will see that I teach in the opposite way. I place you in a room quiet enough to feel abandoned, when in truth, it is the place where I teach you to separate your own voice from mine. When I am silent, it is not because I am far, it is because I want you to hear what is rising from the deepest part of you, not so you trust your emotions, but so you learn to discern what is from me, what is from fear, and what is being whispered by darkness. I also know there are mornings when no one calls your name. No one urges you up. No one pushes you forward. The room holds only the bed, the window, and your breath moving into the air. You mistake it for loneliness. But I see training when no one else pushes you. You discover where your strength truly comes from. When there is no applause, you learn the value of walking simply because you believe I am leading. I want you to know that maturity does not come from someone telling you what to do, but from your soul learning to hear me even when I do not speak in words. In that quiet room, I let you sit on the empty chair so you may face yourself, not to shame you, but to reveal the shadows that are slowing you down. You may think small irritations, tiny worries, or invisible comparisons are insignificant. But when you face them in the silence I created, you see how powerful they have been in dragging your emotions downward. And the moment you recognize them, I begin to transform you not with thunder, but with a shift as gentle as the breeze of early morning. I do not need to shout for you to hear me. I only need to create a space quiet enough that my voice becomes clearer than every echo. I know there are times when you think you cannot feel me, but in truth, I am training your discernment. When you ask, why are you silent? I see a student stepping into the next lesson. When you say, I don't know what to do, I see a warrior being prepared for promotion. The moments you think you are failing are actually the moments I am digging deeper strength within you, not by force, but by leading you to see what needs my touch. There are many times you sit in your small room before the light has even filled it, your hands wrapped around a warm cup, your heart heavy as if the whole world were pressing against your chest. You think it is merely fatigue, but I know it is the moment I am turning over the old soil in you so I can replace it with new. You do not see me standing there, yet I am doing my strongest work in the quietest place. You do not hear my footsteps, yet I am circling your heart, examining which parts need reinforcing, which parts need binding, which parts need more light. The empty chair beside you is not a symbol of absence. It is the space reserved for me, a place where I sit beside you to watch how your heart responds to silence. There are mornings when I leave that chair empty so you will understand that I am not forcing you to run, not pushing you to appear strong. I want you to learn to come to me on your own, not because someone drags you, but because you begin to recognize that silence is not the end, it is the beginning of what I am about to speak. I train you with silence because silence exposes the noise within that you cannot hear when everything around you is loud. In stillness, you begin to hear your real thoughts, your real emotions, the unnamed fears, the desires you keep hidden even from yourself. When you start to hear yourself, you begin to hear me more clearly. And when you hear me, that training becomes strength. You imagine that I teach you through grand trials, but I teach you through quiet mornings when no one calls your name, through noontimes when you sit alone in a silent chair, through evenings when you simply look out the window. It is in those unspoken moments that I am shaping you from the inside out, not to make you cold, but to make you steady. True strength is not born from shouting. True strength is born from the stillness I cultivate within you. When I show you your weaknesses, you often lower your head, thinking I am criticizing or exposing something shameful. But I never use weakness to humiliate you. I show it so I can prepare to place my strength there, like clay in the potter's hands. You cannot see the final form, but I see it long before you take shape. The potter does not see soft clay as a flaw. He sees it as the easiest place to mold. Likewise, where you see fragility, I see potential for shaping. Weakness is not a sentence against you. It is the place I touch first. When you tremble under insecurity, I do not want you to hide it. I want you to place it in my hands so I can reshape that insecurity into an unshakable confidence. When you feel easily wounded, I do not ask you to toughen yourself. I place my hand upon it so I can turn sensitivity into discernment. When you see a crack in your heart and think, I'm broken, I look at that same crack and say, I will pour my glory here. The place you fear most is the place I most desire to make new. I know there are many times you avoid looking at yourself because you fear seeing what is still unhealed. You fear glimpsing the small jealousy rising in your heart, the simmering anger, the insecurities you try to bury beneath a smile or responsibility. But when I hold a mirror before you, I do not stand there as a judge. I stand as the potter, examining the clay before forming it. A potter never feels ashamed of the clay. He rejoices because there is clay to shape. I am the same. I am not disappointed in your weaknesses. I rejoice because they are places where I can work. You think you have to be perfect to please me. But I chose you long before you even knew how to name yourself. When I formed you, I knew every hard patch, every soft patch, every place needing water, every place requiring deeper pressure to shape the mold. No weakness has ever caused me to love you less. It only makes me want to touch you more. There are parts of you bent out of shape by old wounds, by words that made you shrink, by failures that led you to build walls. I do not ignore those distortions. I place them on the wheel and let my hands turn gently until you take the form I intended. Each time I show you something within yourself, it is not a moment where I say, you are terrible. It is a moment where I say, I am about to touch this. I do not start with finished clay. I start with soft clay so I can shape. And when I shape, it is not to break, it is to recreate. Not to hurt, but to form. Not to show you you are lesser, but to show you I can build strength out of what you once called failure. Do not confuse exposure with shame. Darkness uses shame to make you shrink. I expose to bring light. Darkness says, you are not enough. But I say, I will fill you here. Darkness tells you to hide your weakness. I turn weakness into the doorway for my power. You see a fracture and think you are about to shatter. I see a fracture and say, I will pour healing oil here and seal this place. When you tremble, I do not push you away. I pull you close so you can lean on me. Remember, this clay cannot perfect itself. It needs the potter's hands, and so do you. You cannot mend your own heart by effort, cannot erase fear by willpower, cannot change your nature by striving. You need my touch, and I never set you on the wheel to break you. I place you there only when I am ready to lift you into a new level. When I turn you, you will feel dizzy, that is renewal. When I press where you are weak, you will feel discomfort. That is where I am preparing to place my strength. When I wet the dry places, you will feel yourself soften. That is restoration. Your weakness is not an ending point. It is the beginning of my power. I am not ashamed when you are weak. I only ask that you not be ashamed to let me touch that place. I do not wait for you to become perfect before giving you a name. I give you the name first, and then I strengthen you to grow into it. And when you ask, "Why are you showing me this?" I will remind you that only what I bring into the light can be remade. You cannot conquer what you fear to face, but I can transform what you think is beyond repair. Clay is only clay until my hand rests upon it, and you are only your old self until I touch and renew you. Your weakness is the very place where I will place my power, and no one will be able to boast of it but me. The things you have lost were not stolen from you. My child, many of them were weight belts that I myself removed from you so that you could run on the battlefield without collapsing. You look at what is no longer by your side: a relationship, an opportunity, a plan you once thought was perfect, and your heart grows heavy as though someone ripped them away. But I want you to know a deeper truth. There are things I take not to make you lack, but to make you light. You cannot carry an overloaded backpack and still expect to run swiftly in a spiritual war zone, where every step must be agile, every breath clear, every turn light and responsive. I see the things you cling to so tightly, even as they bend your back. Slow your pace, and keep your mind in a constant state of fatigue. That is why I remove them, not to rob you, but to return to you a speed you never knew you could have. Remember this picture: a warrior trains with weight belts to grow stronger. But when the real battle comes, those weight belts must come off. What you call loss is often just me removing the weights so you do not enter the fight carrying the heaviness of the past. There are relationships you believed were indispensable, yet they pressed on your shoulders with expectations, fears, and invisible chains. There are plans you labeled for life, which in reality made your soul stiff and unwilling to turn when I called. There are things you treasured like precious artifacts, but they drained your strength day after day. You did not realize how heavy they were until I took them from you, and only then did you notice you could finally breathe deeply again. I know there were times you wept when something left your life, and you asked me, "Why did you allow this to disappear?" You did not know that I was the one who removed it. Like a father unstrapping an oversized backpack from the shoulders of a child trembling with exhaustion. You were not robbed, you were released. You were not abandoned, you were lightened. Loss is not always an attack, sometimes it is intervention. And I intervene because I know there are things you have not dared to admit are wearing you out. I see you straining to hold on, even as your hands shake. I will not let you continue like that. I want to tell you a story you have read before, but perhaps have not seen from this angle: the story of Gideon. When he was preparing for battle, he had a large army, and to human eyes the number made sense. But I saw something else. If Gideon kept them all, victory would convince him that human strength was enough, that he did not truly need me. So I reduced his numbers not by a few, but by almost all, until what remained was so small that no one could lean on anything but me. I left him with only 300 men to face countless enemies. not so that he would lose, but so that he would win, carrying nothing heavier than my presence. What I did with Gideon, I also do with you. I remove to lighten. And it is that very lightness that opens the way to victories you could never attain, while still holding everything you thought you needed. In the same way, in your life, the things that disappear are not signs that I am far away. They are signs that I am adjusting your gear for a larger, deeper, more intense battle. The dreams you once held tightly but no longer carry are not gone because they were evil, but because they were not swift enough for the land I am preparing. The people who once walked beside you but have turned onto other paths are not gone because you were not good enough, but because I want to ensure that in the coming battles, your companions are those I have chosen, not those you managed to keep by force. The emotions, habits, and old desires that fall from you are not leaving because you are too weak to hold them, but because you have grown strong enough for me to remove them. Have you noticed this? Every time you lose something, a space opens in your heart. You mistake that space for loss. But in truth, it is the room I prepare to place power within you. If you kept everything old, the strength I want to pour in would have no place to rest. A place already full cannot receive more. That is why I empty, not to leave you hollow, but to give you capacity for what I am giving. Everything I remove intentionally. Everything I take in its appointed time. Every emptiness I create with purpose. I see the evenings when you sit alone, repeating inside, if only I still had that. You do not realize that if it remained, you would no longer be light enough to hear my voice. You do not realize that if I had not intervened, you would enter the battle lines with a backpack many times heavier than your strength. You do not realize that if I had not taken some things away, you would collapse long before reaching the territory I have prepared. You ask me, why did I lose this? And I answer, so you could run. Believe this, there is nothing I remove from you that I do not replace with something more solid. Nothing leaves your life without clearing a path for something new to enter. No empty place in you is left empty forever. What you lost belonged to the old part. What I am bringing belongs to the strong part. And that strong portion is not poured into places of pride, but into places that have been emptied. I take the weight belts off you because the battle ahead does not require you to be heavier, but lighter, light enough to run at the sound of my voice without being dragged back by what once held you. My child, there are burdens I have already lifted from you before you had time to tremble or gasp for air. And precisely because you did not see them, you assumed nothing was happening. I want you to understand that in the unseen realm, many arrows have flown toward you at a speed you cannot imagine, and each one was stopped before it ever touched your skin. There are angels I have sent to stand exactly where those arrows would cross your path, blocking them like a wall of fire that never grows tired. There were blows aimed at your soul, but they never landed because my arm was already extended before they made a sound. If you knew how many battles you have already escaped, you would tremble, not with fear, but with awe at how completely you are covered. You often think you simply had a peaceful day, when in fact it was a day in which I carried dozens of things you never saw. There were times when your heart suddenly grew heavy for no apparent reason, then just as suddenly lightened again, and you did not understand why. That was the moment my angel wrapped your soul like a mother's hands catching a child just as it loses its footing. The child never knows it was about to fall, nor who caught it, but it never hits the ground, and that is you. In countless moments, I have guarded you. It is not because you were wise, but because I arrived before every stumble. It is not because you were strong, but because I placed a shield around you before you knew you needed it. You think you walk alone, but you have never taken a single step without my shadow beside you. There are many battles that never even began because I shut the door from afar. You did not hear the impact, did not see the dust, did not feel the tremor. Because I pushed the door closed the moment darkness laid a hand on the hinge. You do not know how many confrontations were planned against you. But with one look from me, the enemy slipped back into the shadows. You do not know how many accusations were aimed at your name, but they were silenced at the threshold of the tongue before they could be spoken. That is why you often think you have not been attacked, when in reality, I simply did not allow the attack to advance beyond a thought. You live within a shield you cannot see, stronger than any fortress you could ever build by your own effort. I want you to picture this. The angels I have placed around you are not standing still. They move with the rhythm of your breath. When you step into a room heavy with pressure, they go before you, scanning every shadowed corner. When you sit down with a troubled mind, they stand behind you, blocking every intrusive thought that seeks to fracture the bones of your faith. When you sleep, they surround your bed like pillars of light piercing the night. When your dreams grow heavy, they descend like golden dust upon your forehead, dissolving the memories that try to cling to you. You never sleep alone. You simply do not see the army I station on the roof, guarding each breath you take. And there are moments when I myself am the one catching you in ways you never imagined. Do you remember those afternoons when you suddenly changed your mind, didn't take the usual route, didn't meet the person you meant to meet, didn't go where you planned? You thought it was emotional hesitation. In truth, it was me, pulling you away from situations you did not know held traps. Do you remember the times you wanted to send a message in anger but your finger stopped at the last second? That was me, restraining the word that could have opened a door to harm. Do you remember the days you left home feeling irritable, only to encounter someone who softened your spirit? I sent that gentleness as a barrier so your thoughts wouldn't collapse on you. Not every rescue is dramatic. Many rescues occur silently, as soft as breath, unnoticed by you. I want you to look back at your life and recognize this if you are standing here today. It is not because you avoided every blow, but because I absorbed most of them. When you feel, "Why am I so tired?" you are feeling the aftershock of an attack that was disarmed. When your soul suddenly falls quiet for no reason, it is because a battle was stopped at the threshold and you are only feeling the leftover waves. You have never been alone in this war. Even though you have felt lonely many times, your loneliness is real. But the spiritual reality is different. I have always been there, at the front line, never standing outside the boundary. Imagine a child learning to walk. It takes a few steps. Its foot slips, and the mother reaches out faster than reflex, her arm looping around its chest before its head hits the ground. The child has no idea how painful the fall would have been. It only knows it is still standing. You are the same. My child, you stand today not because you have exceptional balance, but because I reached out before you collapsed. I do not catch you to indulge you, but to protect the purpose I have placed upon your life. For what I am preparing in you cannot unfold if you are wounded too deeply by arrows you were never meant to receive. And I, the one who calls you by your true name, will not allow an invisible arrow to define you. You are defined by my hand catching you, by the moments I pulled you away from what sought to consume you, by the quiet interventions you never knew took place. I protect you this way not because you are weak, but because you are vital in my plan. There are battles I have fought in your place, so you would not die under a blow you were not yet trained to endure. And had I not intervened, Your soul would have been torn by attacks beyond your capacity. You often wonder why doors you wanted suddenly slammed shut. Why plans that seemed smooth suddenly broke apart. You assumed it was failure. But in truth it was me pulling you away from a field of fire you could not yet see. Whenever you feel a sudden sense of unease, despite calm circumstances, it is the signal I send for my angels to shift formation around you. Because the enemy has moved closer than you noticed, I have stood before you like a warrior of light, wings of flame stretched wide, striking down what does not belong to the life I placed within you before any of it could touch your breath. I want you to picture this in the deepest darkness. There is a zone of light surrounding you that human eyes cannot see. When the enemy tries to slip through a gap you thought too small to guard, my light rises like a blazing sword, cutting through the night to defend each heartbeat. The angels I send do not merely stand in place. They move in response to every shift of the enemy, forming a living ring of protection around you. There are nights when your dreams turn dim, yet darkness cannot touch your soul because my angel is standing at the edge of your bed, shield in hand, intercepting every night arrow. You have no idea how many battles you have bypassed, battles where even a slight misstep would have left you exhausted. You have read the promise in Psalm 91, but you have never seen it as true for you, as in this: He will command His angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways, not in some of your moments, but in all your ways, the places you intentionally go and the places you slip into unknowingly. When you step into a space heavy with unseen darkness, my angel steps in first, drawing a luminous sword through the air like fire wind, clearing the spiritual atmosphere before your foot lands. When you sit at a table with people whose words carry hidden poison, my angel stands beside you, dulling the edge of every spear that could pierce your heart. When you walk through a quiet day and your soul feels heavy as stone, it is not because you have failed. It is because I fought a battle so intense that its tremors still brush against your mind. You do not see it, but there are moments when darkness tries to strike with full force. And in that very instant, I stand against it as a warrior of light who never retreats. Darkness knows well the boundary I have set. It cannot cross without my permission. There are things I allow you to face so you may learn, and there are things I shield you from because they exceed your current spiritual strength. As a father does not throw a child into a whirlpool, I do not let you be crushed by battles your spiritual muscles cannot yet carry. You feel only a breeze, but I have blocked a storm. You hear only silence, but I have silenced a siege. You sigh, but I have shattered a chain that sought to bind your soul. There are days you cannot understand why you feel exhausted to the bone, though you have done nothing heavy. This is the residue of a battle you did not fight, but your spirit still felt the echo of. You want to be stronger, to grow faster, to be sturdy enough to face things alone. But every journey requires time. Not every battlefield is one I allow you to step into. Some are battlefields I step into for you so you are not wounded too early, so your purpose is not derailed by a blow you were not yet ready to withstand. You think you are being left behind, but in truth you are being protected so that you may step in at the right time. And then the day will come when I lead you into some of the battles I once fought in your place. But this time you will step in not with trembling hands, but with a heart as steady as stone, because you have been trained to discern what is moving around you. In that day, you will not only evade but push back, not only hold your ground but advance, not only survive but carry light into dark places. For my purpose is not to keep you forever in fear, but to prepare you to become light in the midst of the battlefield, a light the darkness cannot swallow. Remember this, you are not weak because you need me to fight for you. You are strong because you are covered by the one who never loses a battle. What you call empty peace is actually the pause I create after winning a battle you could not see. What you call a lucky escape is in truth the victory I just secured for you. What you dismiss as probably nothing is actually proof that I stood in front of you and did not allow the darkness to come near. You are alive today not because you avoided its traps, but because I crushed those traps the moment they were laid. You are still standing today not because of your skill, but because I have stood between you and everything that wanted to destroy you. Let this truth reshape your heart. You live because I have fought in your place. You move forward because I have opened the way. You are safe because I have blocked what you were not yet ready to face. And I will keep doing this until the day you are mature enough to see that I am not only your protector, but also the one who equips you to become a victor. There are times when I am silent, not because I am absent, but because I am building a wall of defense so the enemy cannot draw near to you. You often listen to the flow of your emotions and conclude that when there is no sound from heaven, I must have withdrawn. But in reality, that silence is the echo of the work I am doing, a ring of fortification around your soul, reinforced with my presence. In that silence, you cannot hear my voice, but the darkness cannot hear yours either, and that is a form of protection you do not easily recognize. You think you have been left behind, but in truth, you are standing behind the wall I have raised with an invisible hand, where every arrow falls to the ground before it can even make a sound. Many times you pray and wait for an answer, but what I do is not speak. I seal off the paths of the one who would attack you if you stepped forward at the wrong time. You want immediate direction. I want your safety first. You want signs. I want the enemy silenced. You want a clear word. But instead, I add another layer to the wall, blocking every sound from the shadows. That is why there are nights so quiet you feel as if the sky has stopped moving, but in those very moments, I am setting spiritual stones into place, making it impossible for the enemy to find a side path into your thoughts. You do not know that if I spoke in those moments, you would run after the sound and would not remain still long enough for the defenses to be completed. I am silent not to test you, but to keep you standing in the right position. My silence is not emptiness, it is hidden activity, like a soldier drawing the bow in the dark, saying nothing so as not to reveal his position. I keep quiet to protect my strategy over your life. Sometimes that very stillness is the loudest roar in the unseen realm, because it announces that I am preparing for the next battle by sealing off every entrance the darkness might use. Remember those moments when you sat in your room, hearing the fan whir steadily, hearing footsteps in the yard, but hearing nothing from me. You thought it was just an ordinary evening, but in truth, that was when the hosts of heaven stood along your walls like pillars of light, forming a perimeter the enemy could not cross. Your silence in that moment was a sign that the battle had temporarily quieted because I had already cut off incoming blows. It was not that you were too exhausted to hear me. It was that I had calmed the battlefield to keep your heart from being shaken beyond what it could bear. Remember the feeling you once had you were doing something ordinary when your soul suddenly grew still, like water without a ripple. You thought it was fatigue, but in fact it was a kind of spiritual curfew the moment I shut the door so the enemy would be locked outside. There was no sound from me, but there was also no hiss from the darkness. You stood in the middle of silence, and that silence itself was your shelter. I would rather keep quiet to preserve the calm of the battlefield than speak to you while arrows are still flying. I know you sometimes fear silence because it forces you to face your own inner world. But know this, when I am silent, nothing crosses that wall of defense. When I am silent, Every attempt of the darkness to track you is cancelled. When I am silent, the enemy cannot hear your heartbeat to trace its path. When I am silent, your footsteps are hidden in my shadow, just as Psalm 91 promises that you are sheltered under the shadow of the Almighty. The absence of my sound does not mean the absence of my protection. At times, that very lack of audible word is the strongest anthem in the spiritual realm. There have been times when you thought I was silent because I was disappointed in you because you were not believing enough, not good enough, not strong enough. In truth, I was silent because I love you enough to shield you from what you are not yet ready to face. I was silent because there was a storm ahead of you that you could not see. And I was laying down the first wall, then the second, then the third, so that when you arrived there, you would meet only a gentle wind instead of a blade. I was silent because the enemy was searching for your trail. And every time you heard nothing, it was because I was causing it to lose your scent. And then the time will come when I begin to speak again, not because I have just arrived, but because the fortification is complete. When you hear my voice once more, you will find your heart clearer, your mind more stable, your soul no longer torn apart by repeated assaults. You will realize that my silence did not erode your faith, it deepened it. It did not lead you astray. It kept your steps from stumbling into dark places you would otherwise have had to face in painful ways. Believe this as a layer of armor within you when I am silent. It is not a void, it is a protective canopy. It is the wall I am building. It is the promise I am keeping. It is the plan I am spreading out so that the enemy gets lost in its own schemes. I am not absent. I am simply building a fence whose hammer blows make no sound. I am not retreating. I am covering you by making sure that none of my movements reveal your position. My silence is a strategy to keep you alive, keep you whole, and keep you on course. You did not choose yourself. I chose you. Because my eyes see deeper than the fears you wear like an old coat over your shoulders. I know how many times you have thought you are only here by accident, that you are just someone on the sidelines, not holy enough, not strong enough, not brave enough to step forward. But the decision to choose did not start with you. It began with me, the one who sees what you do not yet see, the one who looks past your trembling and touches the seed I buried in your soul from the very beginning. You see only the dry ground. I see the seed straining, ready to split open. You see only weakness. I see strength waiting for the right moment to rise. You are not one who appointed yourself. You are one I have called, and that is why the darkness cannot lay a hand on the root I have planted. There are days when you look into the mirror and see only the fatigue in your eyes, the wounds in your memories that still haven't healed, the failures that make you doubt yourself. You see nothing worthy of being chosen, but I look deeper into the place in your soul that is cracked and dry like soil that has never known rain. I see the seed lying there, not dead, only waiting for the first drop of water poured by my own hand. You think you are dried out, but that dryness is the perfect environment for me to plant something new. A seed only breaks open when the ground knows how to crack, and you have cracked enough for me to sow. Do not mistake dry earth for the end. Often, it is the beginning. In the paradox of the Spirit, the place where you are weakest is the place where I prepare to make you strongest. Because no one will ever be able to say the strength came from you, it will be evident that it came from me. You have never seen me study a seed as closely as I have studied you. When you lie beneath the heavy soil of fear, comparison, and shame, I do not turn my face from you. I place my hand on that soil and feel the faint tremor. You cannot sense the sign that life within is already beginning to move. You think you are buried, but I know you are being planted. You think you are decaying, but I know you are restructuring to rise. You think you have lost all direction, but I know the roots are beginning to anchor into the source of life I prepared, in the darkest place, where no one sees. I see most clearly, and because I see clearly, I have chosen you. You wonder why I still call your name when you feel there is nothing remarkable about you. But I do not choose based on accomplishments. I choose based on purpose. And purpose does not lie in what you possess, but in what I have determined to do through you. When you feel so weak that you believe you have no ability left to continue, that is not a reason for me to leave you. It is the reason I draw closer. Because I know true strength rises only when you stop relying on yourself. Your weakness does not hinder me. Your weakness is the doorway through which I reveal my power. Your trembling is not a reason for me to withdraw. Your trembling is where I place my hand to lift you up. In the paradox of my kingdom, your weakness is the place where my strength is seen most clearly. You have looked at others many times and thought, they are stronger, brighter, more deserving. But I do not choose based on what your eyes see. I do not choose the eloquent or the impressive. I choose the one with room for me to fill. I choose the one with cracks through which my light can shine. I choose the one who knows their smallness, so that when I use them, all glory belongs to me and cannot be shared with anyone else. A seed does not boast of its cracked shell, it simply cracks. Strength does not declare where it comes from, it simply manifests. You do not need a voice before you are chosen first, and the voice will come after. Look back over your life. How many times did you think you were lost? Yet you were standing precisely where I had prepared. How many times did fear overwhelm you until all you could do was gasp for breath? And then a door opened in a direction no one could have predicted. You thought it was coincidence, but it was the sign that I had planted you in the soil that would make you grow. You thought you were merely a seed in dry ground, but dry ground holds water the longest when the rain finally comes. And the rain I am preparing is not a gentle drizzle, it is the kind of rain that transforms the very nature of the soil, turning cracked places into green places. You were not chosen because you were ready. You were chosen so that I could make you ready. I want you to understand this. I did not choose you because you are perfect, but because you are willing for me to touch you. I did not choose you because you are strong, but because you do not hide your weaknesses from me. I did not choose you because you know everything, but because you know how to return when you lose your way. If you chose yourself, you would choose based on fear or pride, but I choose based on truth and purpose. Your fear does not change my mind. Your trembling does not revoke my calling. Your dryness does not stop my sowing. I see deeper than everything on the surface, and what lies deep is what carries value in eternity. You are not an extra piece in my plan. You are the exact piece I intend to place so the picture of heaven can appear. And even when you see yourself as small, I see a warrior. Even when you see yourself as dry, I see a seed preparing to break open. Even when you see yourself as fragile, I see the place where I will perform my greatest miracle. I do not look at you with human eyes. I look at you with the eyes of the Creator, and everything I touch carries the potential to multiply. You have walked through dark regions, endured long silences, and felt the aftershocks of battles you never fully understood. And now, as you stop long enough to look into your own heart, you begin to recognize what I have been doing all along. You are being called, not called to a life of mere survival, not called to exist quietly, but called to awaken, to rise to the position I have placed for you in this invisible battlefield. I have whispered your name through the nights you tossed and turned, touched your heart in the mornings you thought you had nothing left to give, and drawn you close in the moments you thought you were breaking. All of these pieces come together as a single call your soul is only now able to hear. The season of awakening does not come with thunder. It comes with the sense that your heart is beginning to beat to a rhythm not of this world. You find yourself more sensitive to spiritual movements, noticing depth where there once was indifference, hearing ordinary words ring with the weight of revelation. This is not fleeting emotion. It is the sign that I am rekindling what once slept within you. And like a seed cracking open after the first rain, your soul is rising from the dust that battle has long settled upon you. You no longer stand in darkness as one being hunted, but as one hearing the summons of the one who calls you by purpose. When you recognize you are called, you will understand why I did not let you rest comfortably in things that were never meant for you. You will understand why certain relationships faded, certain doors closed, certain plans fell apart, not to wound you, but to separate you from what cannot walk, with the mission being placed on your shoulders. In the season of awakening, everything becomes clear. What is mine will stand, and what is not will remove itself. You do not need to cling, you simply need to follow. I call you not with a shout, but with a stirring from deep within. My call does not come through force but through peace, slipping into the most chaotic parts of you. It does not come to frighten you, but to remind you that you were not born to hide from darkness. You were born to carry light into the places where darkness has ruled the longest. You were not created to sink, but to stand. Not created to fear, but to listen. Not created to wander, but to recognize my voice among the thousand noises of the world. And when you begin to realize that you are being called, fear itself starts to change its shape. It is no longer a beast lunging at you from behind, but a sign that you are approaching the border of something new. When you are afraid, do not step back. Understand that it is at that very boundary where I am waiting. When you tremble, do not think yourself weak. Know that your trembling is leading you toward the place I have intended. When you feel insufficient, do not walk away. Remember that I have never called anyone on the basis of their adequacy, but on the basis of my presence. This is your season of awakening, a season where you realize it is no accident that you are still hearing these words. A season where you understand that your name is not lost in the vastness of the universe, but is echoing in the unseen realm. A season where you rise not because you are strong, but because you are called. Step into this season with an open heart and hands no longer clinging to what is old. I have called and you have heard. Now, my child, answer. If you are ready to step into your season of awakening, write Amen. I step into what you are calling me into. Thank you for listening to today's message. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can continue receiving living words together, building an unshakable faith, and walking in the boundless love of God. Amen.